All right, I think we are live. So, Sherwin, I appreciate you being here. Sherwin Hughes, host of the Forum. Is that right? It's called the Forum, correct?
That is correct. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, the Forum. Sherwin and I were college roommates back in the day, 25 years ago, almost 26 years ago, a long time ago. Feels like yesterday, but I love what Sherwin has been doing. He's been a voice inside of the Milwaukee community, talk radio, top radio host, and really a leader in the community as well. And so with everything that's going on, of course, Minnesota, where we met, where 26 years ago, is kind of where everything has kicked off with George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd and the travesty and everything that's happened since then. And I just wanted to bring Sherwin on today to just have a conversation and talk about what's going on. And I think conversation, like, people ask the question, right? Like, what's the solution? And I think that's like the easy question. Like, yeah, it's cool to say, hey, what's the solution? But it's another thing to actually come up with something, right? And that's the difficult piece to it in my mind. And so I'm like, well, I can have a conversation with somebody that I know and talk and kind of start from there, right? So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And maybe you could just tell people a little bit more about yourself, and then I'd love to just have a conversation.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Nate. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to, not just talk to you, but talk to anyone else who is looking for maybe additional clarity or a way in which they can place some of the feelings that we are all going through. Like, there's not a person that wasn't haunted by those images. I know that I was haunted by those images. And the other ironic thing is, as you alluded to earlier, me and you have got a history in that city. Like, some of the best times of my life were in that city. And I never thought that something like that could happen there. Milwaukee, okay, Chicago, New York, but I didn't want to believe that something like that could happen there. But I think it's a really important moment, because there are people who otherwise wouldn't speak up, or they didn't know what to say when these things happened in any other city and any other time. They're now being engaged. So a little about me: I've done political work, political consulting for about the last 15 years. I've worked for a member of Congress. I've worked for a mayor. I've been the chairman of the state elections board in Wisconsin. I've worked for a state senator. I worked for a presidential campaign. So I have seen how good people coming together to rise to the occasion, to create policy and to vote for policy that can help make more opportunity. There has been some success over the past 30 or 40 years, but clearly we still have a ways to go. And what I believe was necessary is more good people getting involved and paying attention and being outraged, not just by the murder of a man that you all witnessed, but also the outrage people saw when property was being destroyed. But let's not let that destroy the narrative of America. And its selective justice has ignited fires in people for a really long time, and people have kept those fires subdued. But this, I think, was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I agree with what people did in destroying property and the number of police officers who were just doing their jobs that got injured. I'm not going to say I agree with that. But at the same time, we have to look at ourselves and wonder why we are turning a blind eye to a nation that guarantees rights and liberties and freedoms. If we're not going to live up to that, then it's really hard for any business or any institution to be able to stand, because they're standing on a fallacy. So that's, I guess, how I've been wrapping my mind around all of this. But at the same time, every day I'm growing more optimistic, because the protests in Milwaukee are getting larger every day. And as each day passes, more people are getting in this fight. They're peaceful. These are people that are marching and they're chanting and they're holding hands and they're making new friends. People that otherwise never would have met, never would have talked, are now in this fight together. So as time goes on, I become more optimistic, and I hope we get to the place that we always dreamed America could be, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And it's interesting to hear. I didn't realize that, but it's great to hear that these protests are getting bigger and bigger, because I think, early on, like, I would see a few posts from people, like white friends, like, if you're not saying anything, I'm watching you. And I'm just like, I don't know what to say right now. And it's not that I don't want to say anything. And sometimes I don't want to say anything because I know how things get twisted so fast. And I'm like,
Right.
it's not a sign that I'm like, that I'm a racist or that I have feelings one way or the other. Sometimes it's just taking a pause to make sure that I do say the right things. It also could mean for some people that maybe they ain't posting on Facebook and they're out in the community, like protesting peacefully and doing good and helping to clean up and things like that.
Right.
So there is, just in today's day and age with social media and how fast things can go, and there's like, why is there just two sides, right? Why does it just have to be like, you either here or you here? Why can we not just like, why can't there be a middle ground to where we can really come and perspective? And I was like, I don't necessarily agree with the rioting and looting either, but I said this earlier this week. I'm like, but I don't know that I wouldn't be rioting and looting if I was in a similar situation, if I lived up there, if I didn't grow up who I was and where I grew up. I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't. So I have no strong opinions one way or the other there. I just know that people deal with things differently. And if you've been treated a certain way for such a long time, like, I could see how that could happen. And I do feel like I do have the sense, and I'd like to hear you too, is just like, it does seem a little bit different right now. Like, I do see more and more people kind of like speaking up and saying, hey, enough is definitely enough. And just really bringing everything to the surface. Unfortunately, it takes something like this for that to happen. But I do feel like it is more present maybe today than it has been ever. What do you think?
It isn't more present, but it's much more visible because you have cell phone cameras that are rolling constantly. And so think about the cases where there's an African-American man, woman, or a child that was murdered, but there is no cell phone footage, there is no video, there is no audio. And we have been telling those stories, but it's almost like people don't believe us, or they find a way to blame the victim. They blame the Black man, woman, or child that was killed because we had no proof. And so when we were talking about these things that have been happening consistently throughout history, we weren't seen as credible. Or why were you in that neighborhood? They shouldn't have been caught stealing. They always make up these excuses. But now that you have this real-time footage with audio being broadcast all over the world, I think that has shown people the reality of what Black people had been talking about, because there's a lot of things that play in America that have always just discredited Black people. We're lazy, we're on welfare, we're killing each other with Black on Black crime, and there's some people that don't know any better than that narrative. And so if they don't see the video, they either don't believe it or they think it was somehow our fault. But let me say this to our allies out there that are now tired of being on the sidelines. You don't have to say the right thing, but we need to take inventory of who our friends are that are going to help us in this fight to provide justice, not now, but the future minority in this nation is going to be white. And we don't want a white minority 40, 50, 60 years from now to deal with injustices that we left ingrained. So the first thing that we would love to hear, you don't have to get it right. You don't have to have the answers, because hell, nobody has the answers.
Right.
Just tell us you're outraged. Tell us you're upset.
Sure.
We'll start there. Like, you don't have to have every single solution, because we're still going to have to work through that. Now, the other thing, as you said, that I find really interesting that I want to address is the middle ground. There was a middle ground in between these murders, right? So if you look at Philando Castile, if you look at Trayvon Martin, if you look at Eric Garner, the outrage there, and then things subside. And so when cooler heads begin to prevail, that's when we can have, more thoughtful discussions once the emotions are tamped down after we see those, those horrible videos and those images. But you also have to ask yourself, look at other atrocities that took place in American history. I wouldn't ask the people, during the era of Nazi Germany, well, where was the middle ground there? There is no middle ground. You're either with justice, you're with the Constitution, you're with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or you're not. Right? There's no, well, let me think about it. Seeing a man's life leave his body, and then one of the officers checking George Floyd's pulse, saying there is no pulse, but Derek Chauvin still having his knee on the back of his neck is a kind of grotesque, depraved brutality that is not just relegated to the police. There are other vigilantes that see Black life as something that can be extinguished and squashed like a bug. So it is okay to be outraged. It is okay to speak up and not necessarily know all the answers, but we need to know that people are as disgusted by that as everybody else is.
Yeah, and I agree 100% as far as like, yeah, there's no middle ground when it comes to like, to what happened. Absolutely. I guess I was thinking more so from a, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, and maybe there doesn't even need to be a middle ground. Like we can all have different beliefs, but like how can we come together and just really have open conversation? Because it feels like no one's open. I can't say no one, not no one, but a lot of people just aren't open to that conversation. And like I try to, as hard as I can, like always, if something happens, if whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, right? But like just to put myself in their perspective. It's not that I can physically put myself in their shoes, but I can try to take on their perspective to be like, man, I don't know how I would react there. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would say. And I think if more people were willing to do that, that would be a huge change.
No, I agree, but you also have to meet people where they're at. Like we all have people, our friends, our families, our colleagues, and we know these folks. Like we know their level of understanding when it comes to social issues and politics because we have talked to those people before, and you can't often thrust emotional thoughts and feelings on people that only have a particular understanding of issues. So that's that. I think we all have influence in our own specific spheres. But as far as the Democrat and Republican thing goes, because people are going to want to politicize this issue. And if they're going to politicize the issue, I'll meet them where they're at as well. And I'll say this, we need our Republican brothers and sisters who are strict constitutionalists that don't want the Constitution violated. People should be able to peacefully protest. That's in the Constitution because we know the people that come out and defend the Second Amendment. There's 26 other amendments besides the Second Amendment. So if you're going to defend that one, and I will protect your right to defend the Second Amendment, but just know that there's a First Amendment as well that guarantees the safety of these individuals as the cornerstone of our democracy when they peacefully protest. So if we're going to make it political, let's make it political and let's use the Constitution as an ideal document to achieve fairness to where these kinds of things never happen again.
Yeah. So what are some of the conversations that you're having currently today and every day with all the different people that you're running into?
Nate, you name it. It's everything from outright police reform to criminal penalties for the police, policy changes. Some of it is just people wanting to meet other people from diverse communities. More and more people want to know where the peaceful protests are going to be. They want to know how they can organize in their communities. Another thing that has blown me away in all of this. So there's a small town in the northern central part of Wisconsin called Shawano. It's an old, was an old Indian territory many years ago. And there was a protest there. We're probably talking 150 miles away from Milwaukee. So nowhere near the biggest city here.
Yep.
And there was a Black Lives Matter peaceful protest where the Amish community came out.
Yeah.
Like seeing that kind of stuff. Look, this is affecting everybody, and but as far as entertaining, all these different conversations, when I saw the Amish community get outraged, I was like, well, we're on to something now because prior to this, we couldn't count them as people that were going to be out there and letting their voices be heard. So it's been a lot of, anything and everything you can think of because people want to engage any way they possibly can. And it's on the policy side, it's on the protest side, it's on the human side of just wanting to talk to people they otherwise have never talked to before. So that's where I'm optimistic.
Yeah. What's the path that you're on inside of this conversation and with the platform that you have, that you built over the years, like kind of the direction that you're looking to go and the impact that you want to make to help make a difference?
So I want to capture this moment, and I don't want anything that has happened, the positive or the negative, the good images or the dreadful images, to be in vain. And all of the momentum that is being created by this needs to turn into a couple of different things. We need real reform because we've just been putting a Band-Aid on something systemic for far too long, and the wound has now festered and become cancerous. So I want to take this energy and turn it into actual policy. And then that requires people to be more active in the political process. So getting these young folks who are out there doing their part right now, exhibiting their First Amendment right, to also support policy and go out and participate in the process so they can elect people who also want to see these same kinds of political reforms. But then there's this, and this is the selfish part of me, and it's okay to be selfish in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
There are young people, well, they're not born yet. So the yet unborn, 30 years from now,
yeah,
will read about this moment in American history, because the year 2020 is going to live in infamy like December 7th, 1941. It's going to live on like the days of the Civil War. It's just going to be one of those moments frozen in time, and it's going to be studied intensely. This will be in history books forever. And there will be a person 30 years from now, maybe they're 30 years old, and they're going to say, Sherwin, what did you do? What did you do in 2020 when there was unrest? What did you do when there was rioting and looting and a police station burnt to the ground in Minneapolis? How were you involved? And I want to be able to look those young people in the eye in my old age and tell them, here is what I did. Here's how I participated. Because I don't want to have to tell them a generation from now that I was just like, well, I didn't want to upset anybody and I stayed on the sidelines, because history is not going to be kind to us, and rightfully so. Because when the real story of all of this is told, we're going to be made to look guilty because it happened on our watch. So to prevent that, let's get involved now so we have work to show for the future.
Yeah, that's a powerful perspective and thought and even question to ask yourself, like, hey, what answer do I want to be able to give 30 years from now or 20 years from now? I mean, that really is. And hopefully people listening will ask themselves that question, and what can you do today? Which brings me to another one that I've been having this conversation a little bit, championship leadership with the podcast. And we talk about this a lot. Like, everybody leads differently, and you can't try to be a leader that someone else is, like, right? You got to lead from who you are and what you are, which I would say that is going to have you show up and make a difference by being you, and whatever that looks like for you. So if someone's trying to tell you should be doing this and this and this, I don't necessarily think that that's true either. So I think that it's okay to just, as long as you're doing something. And I don't know, I mean, not everybody is going to, on all sides, for whatever reasons. I mean, we've got lives, we got kids, we got responsibilities, we got the COVID, we got businesses that are gone before all of this happened. Some maybe totally lost it after the destruction of COVID. And so there's just so many variables. So yeah, whatever it is for you is kind of where I feel is the right place. What do you think there in that conversation?
First and foremost, people don't have to be superheroes in this moment, because it's all very overwhelming. And it's every now and again, I have to turn off the news. I got to turn the TV off. I do want to still be informed on updates, because I very much want murderers brought to justice. Like, I want any murderer brought to justice, regardless of the situation. But every now and again, I got to turn it off. I got to have a little peace. I have to be still, and I got to recollect my thoughts and then figure out, how am I going to get back out there and try to have some positive influence? And for folks that don't know what to do, or, other people are telling them what to do and, how they should be a leader, just start with your kids. Tell your kids that what's happening in this country is wrong. Yeah. Tell your kids that, you want them to grow up in a world that is free from this kind of systemic problem. And I think that starts, because what you're doing is you are empowering a whole nother generation that will carry this torch long after we're gone, because nobody wants their children to grow up in a world where this stuff is still happening. And so that's really the best leadership that somebody can exhibit. Yeah. Have that conversation with your children. And, Black parents, my parents had to have the conversation with me about being careful of the police and being careful where you go and how you look, because someone's going to perceive me as a thug, even though I have a college degree. White parents should be okay with having that conversation with their children as well. That you need to judge human beings on an individual basis. And you may come in contact with somebody who's just had a really bad day. They lost their job, they're getting a divorce, and they may do and say things that are inappropriate. Don't judge their whole culture. Look at that as an individual situation of somebody had a crappy day, because I know we've all had crappy days, and we would never want to be judged for the rest of our lives because we had a bad day. And that's a basic level of fairness that I think people can exhibit leadership in every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important, and something that I can do a better job of as well with my kids and my children. So appreciate you bringing that up. Is there anything else that you'd like, here's a question I got for you. So you have a Facebook group, the Forum, and I've been a part of that for a while. I'll be honest, I've left the group and come back a few times, but
you're not the only one.
No, and it's great. I feel like it's a good place to be, and yeah, I mean, the conversations that are having and the people that are inside that group and the things that are talked about, it's very one way leaning, I feel. And sometimes I'm like, man, number one, social media, it's hard to have a real productive conversation and put your thought out there. And then it's this back and forth, and that can be difficult. I think you do a great job of that, by the way. And I don't, so I just tend to kind of maybe lurk in the background for the most part and just read. But I think it's good because I get to take on everyone else's perspective, right? It's not necessarily the same as mine. I think it's important to be a part and to have that perspective and to be open to it again. And not that you have to take it on as your own, but just to be open to what else is going on for other people in the world. And so, is it possible to have a group like the Forum where you could just have like all kinds of different perspectives, and let's just use the example of the right and the left inside of a group, and it could be like powerful, and it could be forward moving. And, I don't know if it could. I think I've had that thought, like how great that would be to have a forum that would just be like, hey, we're just open, and we're just like, and I'm like, my opinion will change and it will flow and it's flexible. I don't know if that's that possible or not. What are your thoughts on that? I think we need to get to that. I would love to see us get to that place. I don't know of a group out there currently, but I'm sure maybe there is. I don't know.
The internet has become so compartmentalized that if you have a particular viewpoint, a political viewpoint, there's a place for you, right? There's a place for whatever your ideas are, your sentiments, your political affiliation, that exists. Mm-hmm. What we do in the Forum, and we have tried to do a bipartisan kind of human dialogue. First and foremost, the group is 8 years old, and I have to personally approve every single member and every single comment, every single Facebook Live video, every single protest and every article I personally approve, and it can be overwhelming. So there's that. Yeah. But there are a lot of times that are people that they just disagree. They just hate the whole perspective of trying to have policy conversations, and they want to blame the victims and all of this. And they can be a bull in a china shop in that group. And then it doesn't take much to set people off on the internet, because when you're behind the keyboard and you don't have a real profile picture and the information is fake, people can say everything, and you can very easily lose control of the group and then lose sight of it. And so we make it abundantly clear. And when we invite new members, there's a disclaimer. This is for science, for justice, for truth, policies that promote fairness. And I also give in the disclaimer, the vast majority of the members are from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we have a very low tolerance for nonsense. But to keep the integrity of the group, people that are there with ulterior motives because they just want to challenge everybody and they want to call a bunch of names, they're gone. And so I have to cleanse the group every now and again of things that may take us off of the direction we're trying to go. I will say it is a more left-leaning political group. Republicans are welcome, moderates are welcome, independents are welcome, but don't use your political affiliation like a sword to slash and burn people who have a different affiliation that are also hurting right now. Right. So it takes a mature person that understands the power of words, the power of the internet, but also that delicate touch that if you say something, someone may take it the wrong way. And you have to have a high level of, understanding to be able to operate in a group where some of the articles are very inflammatory. I try not to post those unless those articles have real national implications, because every now and again, getting inflamed and getting enraged is necessary. You deal with those emotions, and then cooler heads prevail, and we can all work together, I'm hoping.
All right, last question for you here. 5 years from now, ideal world, where do you hope that we are as a country?
You're only going to give me 5 years, huh? Okay.
Well, what do you want? What do you want? 10 years?
We'll start with 5, because there's some things that we can do now that can come to fruition in 5 years.
Okay.
I want people in this nation, and not just in this nation, because these protests are worldwide now. There's people protesting in Antwerp, and they're protesting in London and Berlin,
which is amazing and awesome. Yeah,
it is. So this is a worldwide movement, and I want results from the worldwide movement to be, at its very least, to respect people that are different, to have a level of tolerance for someone, regardless of their culture, regardless of what their language is that they speak. I want wages to be fair for people. I want women to not have to live in fear of being sexually harassed and sexually assaulted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want a criminal justice system that is truly blind, and when there is evidence that exists, people are brought to justice. But I also want to see major reforms in how we police. And when I say that, I'm not trying to punish the police, but I do know that it is a science in how you deal with curtailing and curbing human behavior. I want police that love the communities that they serve. I want police that want to work in a community and see, two people, see them get married, see them start a family, see them have kids, and then that police officer to watch those kids grow up and want to protect them. I'm tired of the whole, there's just a few bad apples in the bunch, because I also could say the vast majority of the protests were very, very peaceful. And it was just a few bad apples that caused all the rioting and the looting, which is true. But I need people to see how much damage a few bad apples can do. So I want us to have a much more critical look at police, because here's the thing. I've got friends and family members that are cops, and I fear for their safety, but they also need to know that there's a large number of people out here in public that see their badge as tarnished because of what 4 cops did. So 5 years from now, I would like to have a much more thorough understanding of how we are going to police going into the future, and for the world to be perfect and everything else.
And rainbows and unicorns everywhere. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And any final thoughts? Thank you so much for taking time to be here. I really do appreciate it. It's good to catch up and see you. Any other thoughts before we close this out?
Yeah, I would love people to, join our group and just, experience some of the dialogue and conversations, because if you just want to absorb and read what other people are saying and their reactions to some of the news of the day, that's oftentimes a good first step. So it is the Forum Talk Show on Facebook. So if you search on Facebook, the Forum Talk Show.
Yeah, I'll put the link in. I'll put this link in there. Yeah.
I do a Facebook Live every morning from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then those lives are uploaded to YouTube. And our YouTube is theforum2.com. So if you search theforum2.com on YouTube, and that's also our website as well, theforum2.com. And I just want to engage more people in this dialogue and move forward together.
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, Sherwin.
Thank you, Nate. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Have a good day.